people who'd like to talk on the subject of glyphosate, and I'd like to invite Carrie to come forward. And I don't know whether Courtney Stickles wants to come forward at the same time and present together, or you can do one following the other. So whatever suits you. Are you together or?
No, we're individuals.
You're individuals. Okay, right.
I sit here.
Yeah, just come. We'll sit right in the middle, and Carrie can join you. Courtney can join you, and then she can take over after you've had your 5 minutes. Thank you.
Okay, can you hear me? Is that working?
Sorry?
Is that working?
It should be working.
Hello? Is that working? Okay.
Yeah.
So you might have to speak up a wee bit.
Sorry?
You have to speak up a wee bit.
Speak up a little bit. Okay, good. Hope you don't mind. I don't have a printer, so I've had to bring my computer. Good morning, council members. Thank you for this opportunity to address you all, and thank you for your willingness to further discuss and investigate this topic about glyphosate being used in Christchurch and further. I have long-standing and grave concerns about the widespread use of glyphosate in our city and for all living beings, including the water and the soil and the bees, but especially for our willing men and women workers who are assigned to use glyphosate by city-appointed contractors, many, and perhaps all of them, uninformed about what they're using and being exposed to and exposing others to. As it currently stands, glyphosate is an allowable product, liberally used around the city, and in my view, as a professional in medicine, it is negligently used. But I am grateful and optimistic that the CHED committee has made the recommendation in their report, reporting that option 2 be furthered in process or policy. I don't know if it's necessary to speak what option 2 is. However, bringing that to full council, I believe there is a significant level of compromise that is not best for a widely possible public health vision, nor for long-term policy. It is my opinion that option 3 is preferable and the morally incorrect choice. It's the morally correct choice, excuse me. This is so because the level of protection intended in option 2 is only an acceptable compromise for the immediate and short term. I appreciate any restriction used at this stage and hope that a clear and evident warning for our citizens is posted visibly everywhere where glyphosate is sprayed, in all environments such as walkways, public parks, schools, and playgrounds. Transparency about glyphosate is my concern, and our public right to know about its content, its danger, as it's sprayed in every area of this city, and interfering in human and animal life. All of the statements I make this morning can be supported with research and further documents when the council allows this item to meet public consultation, which might not be considered in the report that you all have put together. The World Health Organization, 1 year ago this month, declared to the world that glyphosate is a probable carcinogen. I think we should let that sink in again. The World Health Organization has declared to the world that glyphosate is a probable carcinogen. Probable being the word we should probably consider. Glyphosate damages genes at sublethal levels. It is a hormone-damaging endocrine distributor at levels not studied in risk assessment. Glyphosate contributes to birth defects, infertility, negative impacts on the reproductive system. Glyphosate contributes to digestive illness. It disrupts gut and makes us nutrient deficient. Glyphosate-based herbicides can exert worrying effects on antibiotics in the body, and glyphosate damages the nervous system at sublethal levels. A local example of this would be a friend who runs a Whole Foods business in New Brighton, who has been exposed to glyphosate where it's been detected in her blood. She has been suffering for over 5 years now, as the substance has given her ongoing physical and neurological symptoms. She would be here today to speak, but she is still unwell from her exposure to glyphosate, and she needs to run her business so that she can feed the people of New Brighton and Christchurch unsprayed food. Recently, while walking outside of the New Brighton Library, 2 unmasked and unprotected, ungloved men, young men, were donning their Roundup backpacks and spraying the landscape all over the front of the library in the wind, whilst children rode their bikes and people and pedestrians walked to and from the library. I was sprayed with this substance, and this is completely and utterly unacceptable. Not long before that, I was outside of the Beat Street Cafe on Barbados Street in the city, and as I was getting ready to enter my vehicle, a young unmasked and ungloved man was spraying the gutter, its weeds, with Roundup. He did not notice the leak in his line, which was leaving a stream of glyphosate/Roundup along the footpath where a dog was sitting and his owner. The negligence in every way brought tears to my eyes, and I further discussed this on my Facebook page. Within hours, the Christchurch City Council reported my discussion and removed it off my personal page. Feels quite undemocratic for mine. Yesterday, I was in Hanson Park picking up children. A team of workers were spraying the perimeter of the park where children hide and play as they enter and exit a nearby school. These examples happen every day, all day. In 2016, there is no shortage of information across the world that glyphosate is dangerous. The available independent medical research and science not funded by Monsanto and the likes is enough to make me wonder if the Christchurch City Council should prepare itself for the largest class action suit it might ever see, should policy to ban glyphosate not be considered. In the meanwhile, shouldn't the public and our workers have the right to know what they're being exposed to? And should work in safety take complete responsibility to provide transparency about what glyphosate is? Total exposure risks and damages to these chemicals are now being determined, as we know from the recent research at Massey, of the incidents where horticultural workers exposed to pesticides had a higher chance of getting cancers. Even New Zealand science is now showing us that people exposed to certain chemical toxins in herbicides, fungicides, and pesticides have higher risk of certain diseases, such as lymphoma and Hodgkin's. I come from the United States and I've lived here for 10 years. As far back as 2004, I have witnessed successful, rapid democratic action for policy change, thus banning all risky and dangerous pesticides from places where children play, where people picnic, where we walk our dogs, where we grow food, and where bees forage. Portland, Oregon, Seattle, Washington are 2 significant metropolitan examples of who have pesticide-free parks and playgrounds. 17 Pacific Northwest cities in the United States of America have banned the use of glyphosate and are proudly pesticide-free parks and playgrounds. Alternatives to glyphosate are used elsewhere. 900 villages, towns, and municipalities in France have restricted and banned glyphosate. Norway, France, the Netherlands, Sweden are all pushing back their policy for use of glyphosate. Barcelona has gone spray-free. Our local EPA uses old chemical company supplied science and research industry information. Not acceptable anymore. It's 2016 and the veil is lifted. There are other alternatives to glyphosate, such as steam weeding, hot water treatment, plant oil, and fatty acid-based herbicides. These technologies have always existed, and other councillors and contracts throughout New Zealand are already implementing them. With good information and investigation, you're likely to find cost comparisons that are better than what the current budget spends on these dangerous chemicals. Other technologies are used, and representatives using them in Auckland and other places in the world are willing to come to New Zealand to support the possibility of us using these cost-competitive, chemicals depending, costs comparative, other alternatives depending on the level of service we require.
I'm just reluctant to interrupt, but we've gone well over time.
have we?
I'm
Almost done.
Have you
I'll say thank you.
Okay.
The choice should not be fiscal. The choice should not be fiscal. The use of glyphosate, to me, seems a human rights issue and a noticeable environmental rights issue. I thank you as a concerned citizen who works in medicine, as a teacher of children and adults, as a beekeeper, as a gardener, as a woman. It is my deepest purpose and my utmost responsibility, and all of ours, to protect all life from harm and the risky behavior that this widespread use of glyphosate already is. As my representatives, I expect you to make the most informed decisions about the further use of glyphosate in Christchurch based on current and independent research and science and investigation. That you take a stand for health, being, our well-being, and the safety of everyone in our community and our environment, and not for a budget. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Courtney.
Amazing. Thank you, Carrie. That was very well said. Thank you, everybody, for giving me the opportunity to speak today. I only found out about this meeting, this public forum, late last night, so I've just scribbled down what I wanted to say. Carrie has spoken to all the statistics and the data around the use of this product. So I want to speak from a personal perspective as a concerned resident of Littleton. So driving home up Canterbury Street, one day I saw that it was spraying day in Littleton a few months ago, and two men on four-wheelers with big white buckets of liquid on their rails were spraying every weed in sight, whether that weed was a menace to the area or to the eyes or not. One of the men made his way up my street, spraying as he went, and stopped at a lookout for a cigarette just next to my house. So I walked up to him and I said, "Could you tell me what you're spraying, please?" Wanting to know what his genuine answer was. And he said, "It's just Roundup." And I said, "It's not just Roundup. It's not just Roundup. This stuff is a known toxin to plant life, to waterways, and to people around the world, not to mention it's the primary profit moneymaker of a company, Monsanto, that I despise." So I pointed to my house and I said, "Please don't spray near there. I don't consent to poisons being sprayed around my home and my family." The frustration of this scenario was that this man was just doing his job, and I recognised so, and I told him that. So I wasn't taking my frustration out on him, but I was just alluding to the fact of what he was spraying. And the problem lies with the council, or the perhaps responsibility lies with the council or city care in adopting this practice of using glyphosate as its go-to strategy for removing weeds. Carrie has just spoken to all the data. You don't need me to fill you in on that. It's been widely documented. But the great issue that I take with that is that by using Roundup in favour of all other methods of weed control that have been implemented successfully in other communities that Carrie has just spoken to, by using Roundup, there is a willful poisoning of the soil in areas that are common to us all. You are making the decision on behalf of the people that live in these communities that in order to maintain the areas that they use and occupy, you're going to poison it. Perhaps it's for budget, perhaps it's resource, perhaps there's not enough manpower to implement different strategies. But on top of that, you're also making the decision on behalf of these communities that the city needs to look perfect. That the roadside or the circumference at the base of a beautiful big tree or a schoolyard cannot have any shoots of life growing from it that the council itself hasn't planted and manicured. I live in Littleton, a pretty edgy and funky community. I personally am not offended by the odd weed growing out of the bitumen or alongside my walking track. And in fact, I eat half of them. I put them in my smoothies. I forage on my morning walk. I make pesto. There's abundant parsley growing along the harbour. Dandelion, for example, is a powerful blood cleanser. I would rather have a medicine for the liver growing in my soil than a poison that will give me cancer that's used to kill it. We need to rethink our priorities, please. We need to rethink our priorities. In a time now where the toxicity of our environment is such an immediate concern to so many of us, whether it's the state of our soil, our waterways, or the air we breathe, I find it archaic that a council such as Christchurch would still use this method in order to keep up appearances. Christchurch has been in the international spotlight since 2011, and for good reason. It's an amazing city. The Time Bank in Littleton has drawn worldwide attention for how it banded together as a community to support the community when everything fell apart. The Gap Filler has provided amazing spaces due to the ingenuity and the creativity of a few members of the community, ordinary members of the public, of the Christchurch public, that decided that spaces needed to be filled when we had no spaces left. That also drew public attention. Now there's talk of it becoming an edible city, an edible garden city where there is food growing along the public spaces and the commons throughout Christchurch and the surrounding areas. That is pretty inspiring. So, let's continue to forge ahead as a city of inspired action. Let's find solutions collectively that will protect our environment, because at this stage in the game, we simply cannot afford not to. When I go for a walk with my 8-year-old stepson and he reaches for a wild berry along the tracks of the Port Hills or anywhere around Christchurch, and I tell him not to eat it because that area will have been sprayed, that is a sad state of affairs. Let's not have it continue. Let's look for solutions. Thank you for allowing me to speak.
Thank you very much indeed for coming.
Thank you.
And thank you for speaking on an issue that's really important. What we're going to do, there is another request for a speaker, Dr. Elvira Demise. Yeah. So we'll listen to Dr. Elvira, and then we have some more public deputation. Have we got other public deputations? Right. So just so you guys are aware of what's happening, and when we'll deal with this issue, we have another section of public deputations that are pre-booked, and then we'll go straight to the glyphosate issue after that. So in about... That's all right. Yeah? Okay?
Is that this morning?
Yes. Yeah. So we'll listen to Dr. Elvira Demise now, and then we have other people who want to make deputations, and then we'll go straight on to the glyphosate issue. Okay? So you guys are free to go and sit down and enjoy or grab coffee or whatever you want to do. Thank you very much indeed for coming.
Thank you, Vicky.
And, right, you know the rules. We've got 5 minutes, generally.
Sure.
Yep. Thank you.
I don't know, is that coming through okay?
Yep.
Good. I'm just going to approach it from a scientific perspective, and I'm going to talk about the metabolic effects of glyphosate. And already glyphosate is in our diet in a lot of ways, because glyphosate is used as a spray when farmers want to have a uniform harvest. Like, they'll just spray a whole crop of wheat and it'll all fall down at once and they can uniformly harvest it. Otherwise everything's at a different stage. So it's in our wheat, it's in all our processed foods that have GMOs in them, because glyphosate is the main spray that's used on GMO crops. So it's currently in our diet in a way that is affecting public health. Now, it's very difficult to monitor public health when you don't have a study in place, and this is such a widespread public health issue right throughout the Western world that it's hard to set up an experiment with humans because we're not laboratory animals. But I'm going to take it right back to the 70s when glyphosate actually came out as an antibiotic, because what it does is it inhibits this pathway, an enzyme pathway called the shikimate pathway, and that's in most bacteria, in fact virtually all bacteria, and it's in plants, but it's not in animals and it's not in humans. So Monsanto said, right, this is not going to, it came out as an antibiotic, and then by accident, it was discovered that it was also a weed killer. So I thought, yes, we'll trademark this as a weed killer. What they didn't say, because it was when I was working at Crop and Food, I worked at Crop and Food for a number of years, and we worked with glyphosate. Everyone said, and we believed it at the time, glyphosate is the safest herbicide. There's no other one that's safer. So if you're going to use one, use glyphosate. So everybody was using glyphosate. It was everywhere. Home gardeners do still, but always were using it from that time onwards. What they didn't say, and they always knew, was that because it inhibits this bacterial and destroys this bacterial enzyme pathway, it inhibits and destroys bacterial pathways in your gut. And it particularly inhibits the species of bacteria in your gut that are the probiotic bacteria. And once the probiotic bacteria are gone, your gut is basically lifeless and you are unable to absorb nutrients properly, you're unable to process your food properly, and then that leads to lots of chronic inflammatory conditions, inflammatory bowel disease, Crohn's disease. It's linked with a lot of diseases that I'm going to talk about briefly. I'm going to refer to my quick notes, which I made in an awful hurry this morning, because I only this morning. I'm going to go through my points now. Monsanto claims that Roundup is harmless to animals and humans because its mechanism of action, called inhibition of the sugarmate pathway, is absent in animals. However, the sugarmate pathway is present in bacteria, including the beneficial bacteria that live in the gut. And glyphosate, as I just explained before, preferentially affects beneficial bacteria, allowing pathogens to overgrow and take over. Now, when pathogens overgrow and take over, you get diseases also like Candida, and you can also get cancer developing because there's not that regulation of the cell division that happens when you've got the probiotic bacteria keeping everything in check in the gut. And I'm sure that you know the gut is described as the second brain, and things that go wrong in the gut can affect and do affect the brain. And there's also a lot of speculation in the research literature about the link with autism. There are two main kind of roots of autism. There's the hereditary inherited form, and there is the form that is attributed to exposure to toxins in the environment. And the autism percentage in the population has hugely increased. I haven't got the figures in front of me, I'm sorry, but you could look them up, since the advent of using glyphosate widely in food and in the environment. Once chronic inflammation sets in, you're well on your way toward chronic and potentially debilitating disease. And there's a small list of the diseases, and this is a paper in a journal called Entropy, and the authors are Dr. Seneff and Dr. Sampsell. I haven't got details, I'm sorry, but I can find them out for you. Glyphosate is possibly the most important factor in the development of multiple chronic diseases and conditions that have become prevalent in Western societies, and these include autism, allergies, cancer, cardiovascular disease, depression, Alzheimer's, infertility, gastrointestinal, which is the irritable bowel, colitis, Crohn's disease, and chronic diarrhoea, obesity, because you can't process your food properly, and it also inhibits the absorption of minerals, and one of the key ones that inhibits the absorption of is magnesium, and lack of magnesium is linked to heart disease and other muscular problems, multiple sclerosis and Parkinson's disease. Now, I could go on, but I don't really think I want to, because I think that there's enough information there for you to realise, and also that there's all these chronic inflammatory diseases associated with your gut bacteria not working. Basically, your gut bacteria don't work, you don't work. The other thing is, I used to work for the council in Gore. My father was the foreman of parks and reserves, and he was in charge of all the public plantings, the gardens, and all the plots. And I worked on the plots, and we did no spraying, we did all hoeing, and you learned to hoe really quickly, in the bucket, in the bucket. Now, I've watched the guys spraying down Domain Terrace, on the Domain, Spraden Domain, I think it's called, because that's where I live, and, you know, they have to walk, spray, walk, spray. Well, it's just as quick with your hoe to go, if you've got a sharp hoe, to go and stick it in your bucket. And I'm a keen gardener, and I never ever have and never will use it. I don't need to, because I've got a good organic system going. And it's not really a matter of, oh dear, this is going to cost an awful lot of money. The awful lot of money that you might save in being able to spray is going to stick the problem elsewhere. It's going to stick it into the health budget, because you're going to have health problems as a result of this. So it's kind of just saying, oh, well, it's not our problem, it's the health department's problem. Also, it looks ugly. If you want to be proud of a garden city that's green and then you have these yellow verges everywhere, I have to say it looks really ugly. And my father used to say, I'm never using it because it looks so ugly. Out there with your edge clippers or your weed eaters or whatever. I mean, you have to think of that. It is a really ugly look, and it never looks good. Not at the yellow stage, not at the brown stage. And they don't take the old brown weeds away anyway, so it's awfully messy. And I hope I've made sense to you, and I thank you for listening.
Thank you very, very much indeed for coming. Very much appreciated. Thank you. Right, so we are now into the deputations by appointment. And this is, are you all coming forward? Who's coming forward first? To Runanga? Is there a debate about how many are coming? Do we need to get you some more seats? No? Yep. Kia ora and welcome. We're in your hands.
Ka rere tako manu mai e tōna ko haka ki kaitara. Huri atu e tako manu ki te tūhaka wariwari. Tai atu ki te marakura. A rere tonu e tako manu ki te pai mako wai puna karoha. Ka teu e tako manu ki te pāhareke ki o tuti kakahi kora ki pōhatu. Koinei, i whare ki tūpuna o kokorara ta whānui a. Ko tū te huerewa, te mātou nei whare tūpuna. E tū mai. E roka, e te marae o puari. E raro nei, o mana kuia, o kakanui, o te upoko hini tiwai, o te heru o kahukura, o te ahu pātiki hoki. Ko kokorara te awa e rere ana ki te whānui a, te ara whānui o makafua, tumu ana. Ko Ngāti hui kai, ko tū haitara, i tū te huerewa, ki te hapu. E hoki ne, e te manu o te whenua. Nō reira, e homi e, hui e, tāi ki e. E te rangitia te hui e tūnei tēnā koutou, mo te koutou mai i tēnei rā. E nau mai, nau mahari mai, e whakapiripiri mai e runga tini kaupapa, e whakahirihira. O reira, tēnā koutou, kia ora tātou katoa. It's an absolute pleasure to be able to address you in the first language of our nation. This a language which is so rarely used in this forum, which should be more encouraged because it belongs to all of us. The Pepe Hao recited gives me the right to stand here and talk on behalf of the whānau Kokorara Tene. We have an occupation in the Bay of over 800 years, 42 generations. Ngaitahu, Ngāti Māmoe, and the ancient Waitaha people, even going back further, i te Rapanui and the old Hawea people. With that comes that right, whakapapa, comes the right of responsibility. We accept that. We acknowledge in the Bay, we are the mana whenua. We acknowledge that the wider community in the Bay are the tangata whenua, the people of that place. That encompasses everyone in our community. With that responsibility, we ask of them what we asked of ourselves, the responsibility that comes with whakapapa. And this is what we're here to address that issue today. The relationship with the council has been based on exactly that, community. We have had riparian fencing and planting on areas that we had long and protracted meetings with the council with. We have fenced, we have planted. We have created a walkway up to our tupuna pou, and with the intention of corn barbecues to be placed down on the beach area for the use of the general public. It takes the heat off the front of our marae, but also acknowledges our respect for the wider community. We are also in the process of building a whare wānanga, which is a house of learning, which will be the base for our environmental school. This is an incentive which is coming from us, but is part of the whole community. It will be focus our relationships, for example, with Lincoln University, who we have organic horticultural program in progress with, and the myriad of other agencies we have, other universities and the CPIT, for example. Also, we have acquired Le Bon's-based school. We have bought that ourselves. This is in conjunction with long consultation with the Labons Bay community. We will support their environmental projects within the bay, and we will work together. One of our as everybody else, victim of Ruomoko, and Ruomoko is the Māori god of earthquakes or volcanoes. We lost our ability to set up our aquaculture academy, which we had up to level 4, already through NZQA. We wish to have Labons to become a part of that. We have a lease agreement with the local community, which consists of $1 per year plus GST, and we insist on getting that GST on the $1. This is how close the relationship we're forming. I reiterate all this because this is our responsibility to the community. This is, we see the future of Kokorarata and everyone in the bay who has the legal right to be there. And I emphasise that. We've reached a stage now, after 70 years, enough is enough. We wish to have our land back. We wish to be able to use it in conjunction with our projects within the community, which are not just Kokorata self-interested, as it's obvious with the explanation of giving you of our wider vision. Our moi moia, which is that beautiful Māori phrase, which incorporates the ability to be able to see into the future, but incorporate all. It's time for that place to go. It's as simple as that. We wish it removed. We're not interested in timetable. We wish the power poles, which are legally on our land, we wish that to be gone as well. We are totally insulted by a long drop defecating on land, which is, because it is an urupa, is a cemetery, is wahitapu. Enough is enough. We are not interested, as I said, in the timetable. I don't intend to go on much more, because what I said is obvious and what is true. We have the backing of our iwi. We have the backing of our community. We are actually speaking here on behalf of the community as well. They have asked us to. It's not merely the tangata whenua, the mana whenua. You are the tangata whenua. I wish to acknowledge the whānui of Kokorarata. They've handled themselves with dignity and respect through this process. I admire the strength of our young people not to take matters in their own hands when they see what's happening. The absolute insult of not being able to have the right of every New Zealander to control the destiny on your own land. Why are we different? I respect them acknowledging the fact that the clouded political issues which have kind of been placed there as some kind of smokescreen. It's nothing to do with us. This is about private land and commonly owned land of all New Zealanders. I want to acknowledge the hurt of our kaumātua, having to put up the history, the generosity and the respect which our tupuna gave to a certain generation. That's gone. There's no relationship. There hasn't been for a long, long time. The hurt of human feces on wahitapu land, that's a huge insult in the Māori world. I also remember the hurt when we took back the news from the last presentation that with 1 year of our tupuna giving the opportunity for the use of the land, that they'd sold that within 1 year. Now, in the Māori world, we struggle at times to understand the ways of the Pākehā world. That is a huge insult again. What was given was not given to this family. That was from the statements that they gave on the day. It was passed on. That's quite simple. I acknowledge that the hurt of the kaumātua having to listen to that kind of kōrero. In closing, I want to thank Ngaitau for supporting on this. It is quite a simple matter to us. We wish to have our right in the world of LORE and the world of LAW acknowledged, as does every New Zealander here have that right on their own freehold land. Please do not acknowledge, as perhaps in the past you have, our good manners being mistaken for weakness. Far from it. As I said, we have 800 years and 42 generations of occupation on there, and we intend to exercise that right. We are not interested in any timeline. The timeline, as far as we're concerned, is tomorrow. Kia ora tātou. Ka mutu.
Na mihi atu au, kia koutou katoa. My name's Chris Ford. I'm the General Counsel at Te Runanga o Ngāi Tahu. And I'm standing here on behalf of the iwi to give support to our Papatapu Runanga colleagues, Kokorarata. To be clear, the two outcomes that are being sought are one, the removal of the batch from the Kokorarata land. It's got no legal right to be there, it's got no permission to be there, and that's something that we'll be working directly with Kokorarata on. And two, removal of the batch from the legal road. Again, has no legal right to be there, and Kokorarata has worked for a long period of time with the council and the community board to address that, and the decision we're seeking is the council to remove that batch. We believe that the decision of your community board, the legal advice, your staff advice all support that outcome, and as Peter has said, and pursuing all options available to them to achieve their stated aims. So thank you for your time, and look forward to a positive decision today. Kia ora.
Kia ora. The time has elapsed for us to consider this. I'm sorry, we've had a number of deputations this morning that weren't agended. So, yeah, can I just thank you for coming and making the presentation. We have heard your heartfelt representations in terms of the history and the decision that we have today. It's item 39 on our agenda, so we will be getting to it later in the day. I'm sorry, I can't bring it forward because we have agreed to bring the glyphosate decision forward because of the number of submissions that came in on that. We made an undertaking that we would do so. I have to receive some additional advice on the item 39, and so I can't move it forward until I have that advice with me. I'm expecting the advice soon, and I'm sorry about that, but it was just whether the family had been notified of the presentation this morning. I have to be even-handed despite the argument that you made from a legal point of view. So I'm sorry that I can't move straight to item 39. But we could advise you when we know when it's coming up on the agenda, and that would then enable you to be here for the debate itself. And it may be that soon we'll be able to provide you with a time that we will aim for. Thank you very much.